tuning in to another episode of Retracing History. We've journeyed back to the Ogwick Valley to pay a winter visit to the East Broadtop Railroad. Before we continue, I want to make a few corrections to previous installments of this series. First, the present editor-in-chief of the FEBT newsletter, Doug Davenport, was kind enough to reach out and provide more information on the situation in Mount Union. The Mount Union Connecting Railroad dates to 1998 following Conrail's split merger with Norfolk Southern and CSX. The East Broadtop Preservation Association acquired the right-of-way in 2014. Thankfully, I found that the yard was not as severely impacted by that shopping center as I initially thought, but a Y for the Mount Union yard was indeed lost during the construction. One more thing to make note is that the damage done to the Ogwick Viaduct was much older, dating back to Hurricane Agnes, which ravaged the area in 1972. Thank you, Mr. Davenport, for this information. If anyone has any additional information or corrections to what is said in any of my videos, reach out to me at readoutproductions1754@gmail.com. I also want to brush up on a criticism I've received on all the East Broadtop videos. Narrow gauge is in fact 3 feet, standard gauge is indeed 4 feet 8.5 inches. I am aware of this when I made the first EBT video, but for some stupid reason, I thought it would be best to generalize and stick to 3 and 4 foot measurements. I'll most likely call the EBT a 3-footer in future videos, so I apologize for my future lazy butt. You have permission to clip this bit and smack me with it in the future. Seems I'm missing something very important. Oh yeah! The day has finally arrived. Steam has returned to the East Broadtop. Few could believe 3 years back we would see such a turnaround of fortune for this line. But here's the proof. It's February 18th, 2023, and there is a fully loaded passenger train being helmed by a newly reborn steam locomotive. When the East Broadtop Foundation took ownership of the railroad in 2020, it announced the goal of restoring the entire fleet of Mikado 280s. It was more surprising here that the first locomotive selected for restoration was number 16. The last time she pulled a train was in early 1956, having been shrouded from the elements in the Rockhill roundhouse for the entirety of the Kovalchuk operation era. But before the closure of the line in 1956, number 16 was in the midst of a major overhaul. This made her the best candidate for the EBT Foundation's first restoration. The 3-year, multi-million-dollar restoration went for the most part like clockwork. The hundreds of hours of tender love and care put into getting number 16 back under power is seen in her spotless appearance. She has never looked as clean since she came to Rockhill Furnace 107 years ago. After successful trial runs in early February of 2023, it was announced number 16 would be pulling excursions for the East Broadtop's Winter Spectacular. There were tons of fun activities welcoming back Steam. We can only cover a few of them. So, enjoy as we go places few regularly get to go and ride some of the most unique equipment that calls the Twin Boroughs home. Most photographs of the East Broadtop will feature the yellow train station overlooking the tracks at Rockhill. It has stood watch over the yard since 1906. Its construction allowed for the railroad to consolidate its general offices and stations under one roof. The previous station's location is at present a mystery, though a good estimate places it along the southeastern side of the main line within the yard's vicinity. This may explain why on several of the historic timetables, the station is referred to as Orbisonia Station. To get into technicals, the station is located on the Rockhill side of the Ogwick Creek, but the borough of Orbisonia has ought to have been the larger of the two boroughs, and as such the station is still popularly identified as such. During the Kovalchuk era, the polar walls anchored signs denoting the building as Orbisonia. Those signs have since been removed by the EBT Foundation as they move toward a more common carrier day authentic appearance. Anyone who wishes to board a train must purchase their ticket from the window within what's presently the gift shop, but few get the chance to peek around at what is upstairs. For the second consecutive year, the EBT Foundation have offered station tours during the Winter Spectacular. I was surprised to discover just how much goes on in the offices on the second floor. From the main conference room where board members gathered, one gets a glimpse 100 years into the past, where number 16 is being worked outside the shops before its next run. A large desk sits in one corner, once being used by Roy Wilburn. Mr. Wilburn came to South Huntington County during the 1927-28 coal strike, helping to escort non-union workers being wheeled into the vicinity. He didn't receive a warm welcome in the slightest, but would assist in projects on the Rockhill Coal and Iron Company over the years. He eventually took a job in the operations of the East Broad Top's Mount Union yards and was told by his peers he would be moving to some bigger and supposedly better things within 10 years' time. Instead, he became the operating vice president of the line in 1953, a position he would hold for over 40 years. When he retired in 1989, he was the last member of the common carrier days still employed on the old Eastie. In addition to Mr. Wilburn's desk, there are several workspaces for different clerical jobs required to run the railroad in its heyday. It's been discovered that these desks are all custom notched to fit in particular corners of the second floor. The East Broadtop Foundation also could open up a whole separate museum dedicated to typewriters used by these clerical employees. When I say everything was left when the railroad closed, I mean it. Overlooking the platform is the desk of the train dispatcher. Using this very switchboard, the dispatcher could communicate with the train crews and station masters across the entire length of line. It was also the dispatcher's responsibility to produce the written orders for the crews passing through Rockhill. When they built the station, the railroad thought they had come up with an efficient manner of delivering orders to the trains. The small hatch in the floor opens to a tube that runs down to the first floor, where someone could hand the orders up to the oncoming train crew. But shortly into service, the orders, whose papers were as thin as onion skins, became stuck and torn apart within the tube. They found old-school hand delivery from the second floor to the first floor out to the platform to be the better method. The next desk over belonged to the freight agent. Here they could keep tabs on all the carloads and empties journeying across the line. The agent would have relied on multiple clerks to keep track of all the unique situations each carload of freight entailed. Believe it or not, several of the old rotary phones are still patched into phones on the first floor, where the local post office once was. Mailing something out of the East Broadtop's offices was quite simple, for the chute drops all outgoing mail straight into the post office below. On the other end of the second floor lays the Chief Engineer office. Here lay scores of blueprints, manuals, and other key engineering texts pertaining to the operations of the railroad. A keen eye can pick up on slits in the window frame, where blueprints would have been carted out on rails to develop by sunlight. This office also provides access to the station's vault. Part of the reason for building Orbisonia Station in 1906 was to have a safe storage facility for all the railroad's documents. Now, normally most railroads truck this paperwork out after 7 years, but large portions of the East Broadtop's paperwork history was kept preserved, either sealed away here in this vault or tucked away in the crevices of the Robertsdale Station. In fact, documentation with the names of descendants of the Penn family have been discovered. The archives preserved by the East Broadtop are a more complete history of Huntington County than the courthouse has preserved. Presently, work is being done to document and digitize as much of the collection as possible. In addition to preserving it for posterity, the East Broadtop hopes to put together a display of all needed paperwork to operate the railroad in a single day. While the East Broadtop predominantly used steam power, it also has come to curate a unique collection of motorized power. In the past, we've seen the M7 from an Ontario steel mill pulling regular excursions. Last October, we rode on the tiny M3 that was used for track inspection, but now we get the chance to take a trip on the M1. In the late 1920s, several short-line railroads were starting to implement the use of motor cars for passenger service as they were more economically efficient to operate rather than firing up a steam locomotive for a lone coach of passengers. These Broadtop purchased a kit from the J.G. Brill and Westinghouse Company in 1926, which came with the engine, traction motors, brakes, air tanks, trucks, and necessary electrics to put together a motor car. The crews in the Rockhill shops put the pieces together and had the M1 in service by 1927. The M1 assumed regular passenger responsibilities throughout the Great Depression. It was the last piece of motive power to run to Robertsdale, making several inspections of the late line until 1960. When a dispute arose between the East Broadtop Railroad and the development of a new school building that threatened to envelop the right-of-way, the M1 was parked in front of the school grounds to prove the old Eastie was still alive.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have tickets...
The model of gasoline engine which powers the M1 was originally submitted by Brill to the U.S. Navy's airship program, but when the Navy went with another design, Brill repurposed the model for their already successful motorcar business. It is believed that the M1 is the only narrow-gauge motorcar powered by a gasoline engine driving its generator. There's plenty of room on board the M1, but very little seating. The M1 is in essence a self-propelled combine car, with a large space for mail and other freight. There is a small compartment that can seat 12 passengers in the rear. If you're about to go on a boat, but don't have your sea legs, get a ticket to ride the M1. It'll shake the nerves right out of you in no time. I kid. For the most part, the M1 is a fun ride, with only slight seesaw action. But when it is at certain speeds, it is known to get the shakes. Making the return to Rockhill, I began to pay closer attention to the photo lines along Route 522. We're crossing the long field near Colgate Grove, which makes for great vistas for photographs. The train in the foreground, an old bridge in the background. If you see yourself right now, let me know in the comments. I'd be very happy to link your video of the M1 passing by. Now, the winter spectacular festivities were not isolated to the East Broadtop. Another piece in making Rockhill and Orbisonia a must destination for rail fans is the nearby Rockhill Trolley Museum. They had much of their operable fleet of trolleys in service on Saturday, including equipment only brought out on rare occasions. The most significant of which is less a trolley and more a full-scale train. Behold, the Liberty Liner. one of two identical articulated interurban trains built by the St. Louis Car Company in 1941. Originally, it was operated by the Chicago, North Shore, and Milwaukee Railroad, with hopes this new sleek design would win ridership back from competing lines. Its traction motors can generate 1,000 horsepower, making 90 miles per hour easily attainable in its heyday. In addition to speed, the liner also had a lounge car which served breakfast, lunch, and even carried a liquor license. While these features helped to retain ridership for some time, the North Shore line was ultimately abandoned in 1963. Both liners were sold to the Philadelphia Suburban Transportation Company, gaining a new red arrow color scheme, and this particular liner became named the Independence Hall. It operated on a rough 14-mile line which saw ample ridership but wore out the cars. In 1981, SEPTA placed the liners for sale. The Trolley Museum successfully bid on Independence Hall and trucked it across the state in pieces with a team of 6 tractor-trailer trucks.
No, I still think this is better.
Oh, absolutely. It actually moves.
This is the easy part, it's all downhill.
Since its arrival, Independence Hall has proven to be a beast of a restoration project. While it functions at present, we were told it is still in need of additional circuitry work in order to operate efficiently. The cars are also in a state of disrepair as a result of that 14-mile line it ran out of Philadelphia. The complexity of operating such a massive piece of equipment means it can be the only piece of rolling stock active on the line at a given time. We were informed by one of the volunteers that at present, only 2 individuals are qualified to drive Independence Hall. When the Trolley Museum brings out Independence Hall for one of its rare runs, it draws attention. Even with the excitement of number 16, 102 people boarded the lone run of this Liberty liner during the Winter Spectacular. There was so much that went on in Rockhill, Pennsylvania, and I'm just one person. But the activities I did get to engage with will be something I will not soon forget. A thank you to the people employed or volunteered by keeping railroad history alive at the East Broadtop Railroad and Rockhill Trolley Museum. Much more work is being planned in restoring the equipment, buildings, and line. There will be links in the description below to the railroad, the Trolley Museum, and the Friends of the East Broadtop should you wish to learn more, and I encourage you to always learn more, or if you wish to financially contribute to these preservation efforts. I would like to thank you for tuning in to another installment of Retracing History. The East Broadtop videos have always been big successes on the channel and are some of my favorite videos to do. But I cover far more than just railroads. If you subscribe to Readout Productions, you will grow the channel as I explore more of our shared past. If you wish to go the extra mile and financially contribute to this channel, you can do so by buying me a cup of cappuccino on my Ko-fi page. Until we meet again, be sure to live, explore, and preserve history.